Joining me now for that conversation is the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy Senior Advisor, Richard Goldberg. Richard, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
I do find this has been somewhat elusive. I think in any endeavor, whether or not it's a sports contest, it's a football game, or it's a war, you have to define a win in order to accomplish a win. Brett Baier, in his conversations with President Trump, laid out those three objectives that I have now laid out here today. Do those three objectives, if they are accomplished, amount to victory?
It's close to victory. Those are all big wins. I mean, total victory is the collapse and transition away from the Islamic Republic of Iran. And this is a regime at war with the United States for 47 years. They are the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. If you don't stop them from being the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, any sanctions relief, even if you get a lot of different wins in exchange for that sanctions relief, is still subsidizing terrorism, potentially against the United States.
But do you think that has been the priority for this administration? Is completely not just decapitating, but eradicating the regime in Iran is it in the top 5 priorities for this administration? Or has it been something like a Venezuelan model of a zombie regime, a Delcy Rodriguez type, somebody that can maintain stability in Iran, but will no longer do harm on the world stage and won't pursue their nuclear ambitions?
I think with a regime like this, unlike a regime in Venezuela that you might be able to buy off, these are hardened ideologues who hate the United States. I mean, these are jihadists, basically, but they're Shia jihadists instead of Sunni jihadists. And so you could think you're going to get a Delcy, and there might be technocrats in the system who are saying, hey, this blockade is terrible, the economy's about to collapse, banks are teetering, we got to cut a deal, otherwise we're all going to go away and the people are going to rise up. I think that's what's happening from some people splintering inside the regime right now. That's why the president has the upper hand here. But in the end, remember, these are people who believe in the Islamic Revolution. I think for the president, he gets that. I think he gets that at his core. I think he knows that you have thugs in the world, and maybe you can make a deal with a thug, and then you have terrorists, and most of these people are terrorists.
But there are a lot of these people, to your point, in Iran. It wasn't just 20 at the top of the head of the snake. It is thousands throughout the IRGC, the Basij, throughout the system in Iran. So but the president must also believe there is a negotiation. He believes in the concept of negotiation. That means somebody there can sign a peace deal, presumably accommodate the objectives of the United States, and enforce that internally in Iran. So if they promise us they're not going to enrich uranium, whoever is making that promise can ensure that rogue elements of the IRGC are not doing so.
Presumably that's true. If they had command and control and they were able to keep the system intact and they actually verifiably were keeping their commitments and you believe that they would, technically that would be true. There are some telltale signs that would give us an indication early. For instance, on this idea of, making sure they don't reconstitute their nuclear program, making sure they don't go back to rebuilding enrichment sites and having a supply chain for nuclear weapons. Number one, they have never fully disclosed all the aspects of their nuclear program in history. Right? We have these illicit sites that the president has ordered bombed several times. We have incredible destruction now of Fordo and Natanz. We have destruction of the above ground sites at Isfahan, the conversion facilities, other parts of the supply chain. We still have a large underground mountain facility deeper than Fordo at Pickaxe Mountain. You can order those, in some way bombed or inspected or anything like that. But in the end, if they don't tell you everything we don't still know about the program, they've never even admitted they were trying to build nuclear weapons. And so from an accountability perspective, in nuclear weapons, actual accountability, think about like a business with a balance sheet. If you were doing a deal with somebody and you didn't even get to see their balance sheet, how would you know you got a good deal?
Okay, but when you describe that, to be honest, you make me very pessimistic about the prospects of any potential deal that President Trump is hinting at here. But not only the question isn't whether or not we can get a deal signed with someone in Iran. The question is whether or not that deal will carry weight inside of Iran. And so if you're right, if I'm right in hearing pessimism from you, what comes next? A blockade. We're not going to put boots on the ground in order to effectuate
There's no political will for that, and it would also pit our weaknesses against their strengths.
So what are we going to do? Blockade them and aerial bomb them until what? There's a civil war in Iran, and that runs out the regime?
Here's what I think is going through the president's head, and he could pick up the phone right now and call you and say he's dead wrong. I think this is about sequencing. I think this is about understanding what we can achieve through air and through sea power, and understanding the sort of domino effect that will occur. The things you just put up on the screen, right? The nuclear program, ensuring that they cannot threaten us with extortion, that they're about to break out to a nuclear weapons program. The president has achieved that. We would like to get the enriched uranium material. I don't like them having high enriched uranium or low enriched uranium, any kind of stockpile underneath Isfahan. We should get that out, and he has the leverage to do that. That's sort of the one missing piece plus Pickaxe Mountain. But he's effectuated that. The missile program, having long-range missiles, right? So that ability to wage war against the United States is being taken away from them. The ability to hold hostage the Strait of Hormuz and the economy can also be taken away from them. At that point, what do they have left? What are the threats remaining that we still need to deal with? We will still need to have maximum pressure on them to stop being a state sponsor of terrorism. But if they are that weakened on all of the largest threats to the United States, first of all, that's a win for our national security up front. It's a win in grand strategy because think about it. If they're no longer the gas station for China, the munitions depot for Russia, that's big for us in grand strategy. And then you do need covert actions and continue to sustain maximum pressure, both politically and diplomatically, to still try to get a different regime one day.
Okay. I think the question still remains, describe victory, ask, can that victory be achieved? And then ask, what is the price in order to achieve that victory? That's the question, not just for the President of the United States, but for the American people. That sequence of questions when it comes to Iran. Thank you for this discussion very much.
You bet. Thanks, Will.
All right.